DealFinders, guys, we're back. We're back with another incredible podcast. I just finished recording, and I can't say enough about it. I have a whole page of notes here, and I wish I had more time to get more. You don't want to miss this. Get your own notepad. Listen to what Devin and Alex have to say about new strategies for acquisitions and dispositions in real estate. We cover so much ground here, but there's so much more to cover. You want to listen to this and then reach out. We'll have the links in the show notes. You'll be able to find us. If you have questions, just let us know. Go check us out at DealFindersClub.com. All right, we'll see you over there. All right, guys, welcome back to the DealFinders Podcast, and this is an incredible podcast we're about to go through. I know it because I know these guys. I know what value they're going to bring to you, and I'm just excited to have them both here at one time so they could get such a depth of experience. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves. We have Devin and Alex. Devin, why don't you start with us? Tell us who you are, where you are, and what are you doing?
My name is Devin Robinson. I'm actually in my garage right now. You wouldn't know it. It looks like a space shuttle, but in my garage for anybody that's on the video. And I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. So that's mostly where I work out of is Charlotte, but we operate kind of in the southeast of the U.S. So a little bit in Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, but we're based in Charlotte.
I love the new garage studio conversions that I'm seeing here. I had a podcast guy on, and he started showing me Pinterest. And I'm like, first of all, why are you on Pinterest? But second of all, it's like all these awesome studios that are in garages. So got my mind going. Anyway, Alex, how about you?
Yeah, so I am out of Chapin, South Carolina, which is not far from Columbia. I am part owner of Installment Method, which is run by our fearless leader, Devin Robinson. And then additionally, we do Restoration Homes, which is just an investment company. So a little bit of real estate, which is really how we got in touch with Devin through Collective Genius. So glad we got to collaborate.
Yeah, awesome. Cool.
Yeah. Well, you guys are bringing some nuggets in already, but I'm going to tease them out. So all of you that are listening to this podcast, yes, we are deal finders, and we are here to help people find deals, whether it's your first one or trying to get to a business that does 5 or 6 every month. So we're going to go through some of that, and every time we do this podcast, we have to give some actionable steps to the listeners or the viewers if you're watching on YouTube, so that you can use in your business and go out there and get going. So these guys are going to bring that today. But first, let's talk about your background in real estate. And I like to know how you got your first deal. Devin, how did you get your first deal?
Okay, so this is a very, I guess, unorthodox way of doing this.
Yeah.
So I actually found out about real estate wholesaling on TikTok. I've previously owned other businesses. I say, when it comes to being like a serial entrepreneur, like, yes, that is me. I'm on like my 8th company. 16th like venture that I've done into like different avenues of things. So my 8th company, and I was perusing TikTok just like any good millennial would do, and I came across this guy, and he was like, "Hey, get into real estate with no money and no credit." And I was like, "Yo, that sounds fantastic." So I went to my wife and I was like, "Babe, you should try this. This seems really cool." And she was like, "Nah, I'm good." And so I was like, "Okay, well, I'll just do it then," because that's just kind of been like my MO at this point in life. Is like, I'll just do it then.
Yeah.
And then I went to so then I started like joining Discords and learning and all these things. I went to my mom and I was like, "Oh, I'm trying to do this thing called real estate wholesaling." And she goes, "You know, that's what I do, right?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she goes, "I actually work for a hedge fund, and I'm an acquisitionist for a hedge fund. So we work with a lot of wholesalers. So wholesalers actually just come to us with deals." And she goes, "And I've been using this technique where I go on Zillow for sell by owner, and I negotiate with these sellers. And then I get them under contract." And so she goes, "You should try that." And I was like, "All right, let me just try that." So then this is like the boom. Like this is in 2021, like April 2021, when like you could just, literally, like it could be a dump and the funds are buying high. So we would just literally, I had me and a group of friends. And this is, first of all, this is where like big mistake number one. But I was like, "Hey guys, I've got the connection to the fund. You guys just go and get these under contract. We'll split it 50-50. So like acquisitionists, they're not even like dispoing them. It's like acquisition. They were getting 50% and we're averaging like 20K deals. And so that's how I got my first deal, was like, I just went on Zillow for sell by owner. And the great thing is like, if you know anything about us, very high transparency, very much above the board on things. So we were very above the board. The fund knew. She worked for Amherst. Amherst knew everything that was going on. There was no like special treatment. But like it was almost just like an in of like, this is the strategy they're using. We can do it. And so we just stayed within the guidelines of that. No more than 20K assignment fees. Some of them are 3, some of them are 5, some of them are 10, some of them are 20. And so we went from 0. So in the first 6 months of being in business, we did 70 deals. And so just like that. But it was like the market. So then November comes. So that's between like April to November. November comes and we had like between November and January, we did 3 deals and I had to let go of all of my staff and we had to almost close our doors. So like we were a one-trick pony. I actually didn't know anything about wholesaling in general, but I joined Collective Genius and started that up in August of that month. And then in February of that next year, when we didn't have any deals, we didn't have anything, I just put my head down. I watched every video in the Collective Genius and I learned how to wholesale and I built out SOPs and systems and processes on how to actually do this and then began building a foundation for an actual wholesale company, started scaling from there. So like very unorthodox, a lot of broken friendships, a lot of bad business, a lot of learning this industry, a lot of failing, like a crap ton of failing to get us to where we are today. So very thankful for that season. I learned a lot. I wouldn't take it back. I would change some things, but I wouldn't take it back. But very unorthodox. When you say, what was your first deal? It is not like any others.
You know what, Devin? It's different, but it's not unorthodox. I'd ask this question to everybody, and Alex, I'll ask you in a second, though. But that first deal, and this is where DealFinders is bred from, and this is why we have local meetups every week. It's because those first deals, a couple of them, are usually found through a networking, like a person that you already know or a house that you are already aware of. It's in your backyard. It's in your neighborhood.
Yes.
Literally, one of our first ones across the street. And, those deals are out there. They are right in people's backyard. But what happens is YouTube, TikTok, and things like this tell us that you got to go everywhere else. Everywhere else is where you need to be. My neighborhood's not good. The people I know don't have deals. And literally the fact that your mom was doing this and you didn't know, like that just, it blows my mind, but it also just completely confirms what we talk about, what we tell people is if you aren't talking about what you want to do in real estate, nobody knows and you will never get that deal.
That's true.
So I love that. And man, what a shotgun start you had.
Yeah.
Wheels in 6 months, but I wish more people had started at that point to get some bankrolls, right? But then you went and you found a network, a group of people, high-level folks that can help you build your business. And that's a piece that a lot of people do miss. And I'm so thankful you mentioned it, that you wholesaling is a cash grab where you can make quick money and you can get in the business, but it's not sustainable unless you learn business.
Yeah.
And wholesaling and how it works around there, which means different acquisition strategies and different disposition strategies. So I love that. We'll come back to that. Alex, tell us how you did your first deal.
So it actually goes back pretty far. So when I first graduated college in like 2014, my father-in-law, who was always a hustler, always doing, side business, building a real estate portfolio, I wanted to get into it too. He was very connected with just, talking to people. And so one property we came across was over there in Casey next to BC High School. And anybody familiar with that area knows it's a hot area now, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And we found a property through one of his friends that, basically told him the neighbor was looking to sell. So we went in and, he was equipped to be able to buy it. And I told him, I was like, look, I'll do everything. I just want to be involved. And so we ended up giving an offer. I got to follow through that whole process. Thankfully, he done that before. We bought the property. We renovated everything ourselves, right? Which was, a big change. But I loved it because I got to learn a little bit about everything. I still hold that property to this day. It's now actually a short-term rental, which I never would have imagined, especially in that area.
Yeah.
But yeah, then that kind of led into me like really loving real estate. Went to PwC, which was a big four accounting firm.
Right.
Finally, at that point, I knew Matt Crawford, who's my current business partner. He was working for a real estate company local here in Columbia too. He ended up bringing me on, and that's where we were in about 2019, I believe, 2020, which was where things were crazy. We were working with a big hedge fund that was purchasing, I think, about 80 to 100 homes a month.
Jeez, yeah.
So yeah, we basically got hit into it hard, which was a lot of fun. We learned just about everything we possibly could have with real estate. We did, I think, over a course of about 1.5 to 2 years, I think we did right under 100 wholesale deals. We never hit the 100 mark.
Yeah,
that was between me and Matt. And then, we ended up moving off to our own ship, decided to do our own thing, felt like we had the experience, the knowledge, we wanted to give it a shot. And that's where we set up a technology company with our third partner, Jordan Schutz. And basically we knew the hedge fund space. So we found hedge fund clients, started buying properties for them, basically just acted as like an intermediary, sending offers, handling the entire process. Yeah. And then we realized, you know what? I want to just do this stuff on my own. I'm tired of making other people money. So then we decided to just open up our own business where we buy, flip, wholesale, whatever we can do.
I love it. Man, there's so many different ways that people can get started in real estate, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you guys yourselves, like 8 businesses, 3 or 4 businesses. There's so many different ways. And this is sometimes, I'd say oftentimes, where people get stuck, and because TikTok, once you like one wholesaling, then you're going to get every other TikToker out there. And so you're going to get bombarded with other options. And as you listeners here, watchers here, I want to just give you this piece of find the niche, find the way you're going to get in and go for it. There's going to be 30 other things that will also work, but you can't do them all at once. As you are seeing here, is these guys did one thing, got pretty good at it, or maybe had to switch because of market situations, but then moved in to the next. Like, do one thing and then move to the next. Mm-hmm. Don't try to do all this at once. That's where people flame out, burn out, just run out of cash, Mm-hmm. So, Alex, I got to hit on it. Your first deal, again, in your backyard from somebody in your network because they knew you were looking for deals. Yep. So anybody that's listening to this, if you are just getting started, you haven't done that deal yet, and if you don't post it on Facebook right now, you're not going to get your deal. I want you to hang up, listen, pause this, whatever it is, go tell somebody you need a deal. All right. We kind of hit on some of the things that I really want to dive in with y'all, which is the different disposition and acquisition strategies. So for those listeners out there that don't really know, wholesaling is kind of covers the method of going to a seller, negotiating, getting a property under contract, and then trying to sell and assign that contract, that piece of paper, that contract, that right to buy to someone else for a fee, right? So just to kind of wrap that up so everyone knows exactly what we're talking about. But you guys, you both, and Alex, I want to ask you about this because I know it very well, is something happened to you, your business partners, where you guys decided there's something wrong here that's not going to benefit your business in the long term. You saw something coming or something happened. Give me that aha moment.
Who do you want to start?
You said you, Alex?
Yeah, you.
All right, so the aha moment for us, let's see. You talking about in regards to us jumping into trying to do the wholesaling, or kind of how we ended up?
Just why are you changing from that typical wholesale model into something where you different acquisitions or different dispositions?
Yeah. So our biggest thing was, and I think some people can relate, maybe not everybody, but from our personal side was, we were attempting to wholesale deals, which was great, but we felt like that was just not going to be sustainable, 5 to 10 years from now, right? Because there's a lot of reliance on an end buyer, right? Yeah. Somebody else is making a decision whether or not they want to purchase your contract. And as you'll see in the progression, just with the way we had done business, we tried to slowly get more and more into the mode of where we could have control, right? Which is basically us buying the property, selling the property on the open market. Yeah. Obviously, there's a lot more risk involved. So we had kind of gotten to the point to where we realized, okay, wholesaling's great, but it was difficult during COVID, 2 years ago when things started to slow down, a year and a half ago. We would get properties under contract, couldn't sell them. The institutional buyers basically just all stopped. And it was the wildest time, and so we had no control. So obviously we had to kind of pivot. And so we were trying to figure out, all right, what's the next best end buyer? It's the open market, the MLS, in our opinion. And so, obviously, institutional buyers make up a very small percentage when you compare to everybody in the nation that can buy a house from New York, right?
Yeah.
As a local buyer down here that's trying to do the fix and flip. And so we realized, all right, what do we got to do in order to basically start moving into more of the fix and flip? And we kept seeing things, right? At the end of the day, fix and flips are a lot more cash intensive. Mm-hmm. So that was why wholesaling is great, right? Because you really don't need much money to do it. And so, we started looking into some other option strategies, looked into novations, which was like kind of the next best thing to get it on the internet, right? Without having much cash involved. But, I had a conversation with Gary Pickering over at Blair Cato. I'm a broker in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia, and I know that there's certain things I can and cannot do. And I want to be very cautious of my license. And so I had a conversation with Gary Pickering and how novations work. And I didn't feel comfortable doing that. And Gary also didn't feel comfortable even trying to close a deal like that, knowing that I'm a broker. And so we had a conversation, which kind of ended up pushing us into what's now the installment method and how we were doing things in installments. So I don't know if you want me to get more into that, but that's really where our aha moment was of how we kind of had to shift our strategy to how can we keep doing wholesaling, which did not require a lot of cash to do, to also work in tandem with our fix and flip strategy.
Yeah, so what I heard you say there was hedge funds stop buying. And I think Devin also mentioned that. Market shifts, markets change. And listen, like we can point to that point of like hedge funds stopped, but that was just that market. 2 years ago, there was another change. And 5 years ago, there was some other change. There's always some change in the market, and which is why we talk about as you get going and build a business, you really have to understand the different options and different strategies. And so you guys looked at how do you continue to get deals? How do you get them onto the MLS, right? Because you said we need more buyers, we need more eyeballs without spending as much money out of pocket as going and actually buying all of these, right? Because that is very cash intensive if you try to buy 6, 7, 8 homes a month. So that's where you guys were. A couple of different options came out, but ultimately what I really want to hear, what I really want a case study, and for the audience, everyone that's listening to be able to understand is that installment method. So Devin, I'm going to let you jump in and tell us exactly what we do for installment method.
Yeah, so I and just even give a little context on how I came into the picture of it too. So in Collective Genius, I'm with these guys and they're talking about, you live in, this was their first meeting. And so we were getting to know each other. We were hanging out and I was like, I live in Charlotte. And they're like, oh, that's close. And I was like, I do deals in South Carolina. And they're like, oh, you do? You need to watch out because like certain regulation is coming and you just need to be aware of it. And I was like, oh, okay, good to know. Cause I got houses down there that we're wholesaling, that we're flipping, that we're buying and holding and doing all these different things with. And so then they started talking to me a little bit more about what the installment method was. And so as we kind of get into the nuts and bolts of it, essentially what it is being able to actually put down money that gets you equitable ownership of a property to be able to then legally and ethically wholesale it, flip it, do these things and protect yourself as the buyer. So let's like take it way back. Installments isn't just like a new thing that just came out. Installments have been around since the 1800s. And then they got really popular in the 1960s, 70s, when redlining was really a big issue because minorities had a really hard time getting loans, getting approved for loans, getting money to be able to purchase properties. And so they would enter into installment contracts with these sellers. And what ended up happening was it became really predatory towards the buyers because if the buyer would miss a payment, the seller would just foreclose on them like right away. And that was a stipulation in that installment contract. And so then a whole lot of regulations started coming across nationwide to actually protect buyers in this installment contracts. And so this actually made it really unique because I'm like, okay, so I get to actually come out of pocket. So for us, typically it's $500 out of pocket. And this, we'll talk about in a second, how it provides a very, very cool, like, offer, like a better offer than most, but also a really awesome solution for the seller. And so typically we'll come out of pocket $500. And then that $500 actually gets recorded at an initial closing that then gets recorded with your county by your title company or closing attorney. When that's recorded, what's actually recorded is equitable ownership on the title. So, like, don't get confused. This is not us taking over title, not us going on the title as the owners of this property on the title, but as equitable ownership on the title, which, because of all of the regulation that protects buyers, is actually has case law and is seen as approved as ownership according to like lenders and title companies and title insurance companies. So we don't really run into issues that you would run into sometimes when you do things like sub-twos or novations or just typical wholesales. You actually are really protected in this. And so like they were telling me about this, and I was like, yo, this changes like everything. This is incredible. And so we completely shifted our model, and like, this is all we do now. If we're going to wholesale it, it's true. Even if we're flipping it, we just closed on one a couple of days ago that we'll flip, and we flip it with the installment method. And so this is all we do. So I can tell you a ton of cases on this. But that was like the big aha moment for me. It was like, yo, so like I'm really protected. Doesn't matter, because like the one thing that really got me was Gary said, oh, hey, I'm a South Carolina real estate commissioner. I woke up that day, wholesaling was completely fine. We went into a meeting for 15 minutes. We left that meeting, wholesaling was not fine in South Carolina. And I was like, yo, so that means in 15 minutes, those 9 people dictated the lives of thousands of people in South Carolina and how they raise their families and how they do their jobs. And so like, I was like, I do not want my family to be dictated by some regulatory board that comes up with something. So this was just a really cool way for me to go, okay. And I don't ever harp on regulation. That's the last thing I'll say about regulation. But like, because this provides so many more other solutions that it was just like a no-brainer for me. But that was like a big aha moment for me.
Yeah, and that's incredible. And so I love that you took it back, kind of the history of this. I actually, I did sit down with our attorney, and because we've been doing installments as well. Like, let's go. It's so awesome as we've been doing it, and continue to use this. Today we were actually negotiating one, and I asked our attorney, and he went back, and we were talking about this, and even further back, in the 1800s and stuff, like there just weren't banks. Like I think about the the rural areas today where there's no bank, there's no town, there's nothing. Well, they still can get to a bank, right? In the 1800s, that was it. Like if you owned land out there, no bank was going to lend on it. So that's how land was conveyed and changed hands. And so I love that you brought that back. And then the case law, we went through some of that stuff where buyers really have a good spot now in what they can do with the property, and so the lenders love it. It's just normal. So tell me, if I was looking at wholesaling and I'm like, I just don't get it. Like you're saying all these words, I don't understand it. Break this down to an elementary level, like to the basics. Like, what do I do? What do I even do when I'm sitting with a seller?
Yeah. The basics of this, and when you're sitting with the seller, the really big advantage of this is you get to go, hey, Mr. Seller, hey, Mrs. Seller, I know you're looking for this number. My cash offer is going to be this number. So you're looking for 200. My cash offer is going to be 150. What if I were able to get you that 200 and you worked with me a little bit? I'll either list it onto the multiple listing services where we take care of all of that stuff so that we can get you that 2 number. And if I were to give you $500 now, would that be helpful for you too? So now, like, what we're doing is we're able to actually give somebody. So the offer includes, the offer includes a $500 minimum equitable deposit. This is different because when you're telling a seller, you go, oh, we're going to put down $1,000 EMD, and like, you'll never see it. Like, so cool, thanks. But I'm going, Mr. Seller, I'm going to give you $500 in the next week that goes in your pocket to do whatever you want with it. You got bills to pay them. And then like along the way, so you can structure it however you want, which makes it completely unique from wholesaling. You could structure it. You go, and then what if I paid your mortgage for you until we closed? Would that be helpful for you? Of course that'd be helpful for them. And so like you can structure it much different than if you were to just give a cash offer. So there's a separation of, this is my cash offer. It's $150K. Now the reason why, and as Alex alluded to earlier, the reason why I can offer them 200 is because now I'm not just sending it to cash buyers. I'm putting it on the MLS to 5 million buyers that are using conventional loans. So to break it down to like a very basic granular level, you pay a $500 minimum equitable deposit on a property. You have an initial closing between 7 to 10 days, however quickly it takes you to do your due diligence and for your title company, your closing attorney to clear title. And then at that initial closing, that's when the seller gets paid, but that's also when the installment contract is then recorded with the county. Okay. Since that is recorded with the county, you then now have that equitable ownership over the property in accordance to the county. The world sees you as an equitable owner on that property, which is fantastic because then typically this would happen depending on your state. At the same time, you have that initial 7 to 10 day closing at the beginning. That seller is also going to be signing the deed. And so when they sign the deed, they don't ever have to show up again afterwards. At that point, it's signed. The title company's holding on to that deed, and the next time they show up is to collect their check. But now you have a really unique opportunity to do whatever. You can wholesale it. You can put it on the market. You can put it on the MLS, and you are now seen as the seller of that property. So even if you wholesale it, like with the hedge funds, I talked about this earlier, they have a $20,000 cap on assignments. Yeah. I am now the owner of this property. I can sell it to that hedge fund for whatever I want to sell it to them. It's not an assignment at that point, but it's innate by nature. It's like a wholesale transaction because it's going to a cash buyer, but it's by technicalities, it's just a sale of a property from the seller to the buyer. And so that's what's seen. So if you have buyers that like to cap your assignment fees, this is great because like you're the seller selling it for a price, not assigning it for a fee. And then you have, then you can sign all of the documents with a realtor, which is why this makes it great for like Alex, who is a broker, to be able to have all of these documents and ethically be able to sign them as the seller of this property. Yep. And then we flip out of it a lot. And then we partner with people a lot. I'm going to pitch with this guy tomorrow. He's got a huge house for $800,000. Like that's not an assignable house, but he wants $800,000, but it's not in the condition for that. And I'm going to go, hey, sure, let's go ahead and sell it for $800,000. I'll give you some now, lock in my equitable ownership. I'll flip the house and we can split it 70-30, 60-40, whatever. But like, I'll get you that $800,000 you want. It's not in condition for that, but I can flip it to get it into that condition and not have to worry about me flipping it and then him going, you know what? I kind of like how this house looked, and then decides not to sell it. He's already sold it. I'm already an equitable owner on that property. He has no choice. It's better than a memorandum or like a notice of interest. Like he has no choice but to sell it. So it really protects me to be able to flip these properties. And then my favorite thing you can do out of it is like refinance out of it. That's wild too. That's incredible. And so I want to go and stop because I just talked for a while. And so I want to like...
Well, yeah. So what you were getting to some of the questions. So that's why I let you keep talking, because some of the questions that I have, because I'm thinking of someone that's never heard of this before, or have never thought of this before. And this is where Alex and I, we sat around the table and with some of the guys, and I was like, this is where it blew my mind, is because we've been selling properties on installments for years because it's beneficial in many ways versus an owner finance. Because I still actually have the title. I would still have to foreclose, but if they didn't want to, whatever. So we've done this a bunch, but we've never we didn't think of going, why don't we buy it like this? Why don't we use this as a sales tool to not convince, but solve some of the issues that sellers might have with the wholesale or with a traditional owner finance. So here's the questions I got for people that are just hearing this. I'm thinking a wholesaler, or I am a wholesaler. Who should this go to? Like, who are the sellers that make sense for this?
So I work almost exclusively with foreclosures. So we get a lot of foreclosures that this is directly beneficial to because they have a lot of financial hardship that if they were to sell their house to hopefully sell their house to a wholesaler that could hopefully sell their house in 30 days, that's when they would get paid. For us, we have people who have immediate needs, and we can meet those immediate financial needs with the initial installment payment. And then I have people that come to me all the time, and they're like, hey, can I get a little extra money for this or that? Sure, I'll Venmo it to you. Sure, I'll cash it out, like whatever. And I just Venmo or Zelle it to them. And then I forward that receipt to my title company, and then it's all credited back to me at the closing. So then it actually doesn't even really come out of my pocket, which is great. So for us, works very well with foreclosures. But I also don't pigeonhole that because it also works with anybody, honestly, anybody who's getting 100 calls from 100 other wholesalers because our offer is that much better. Because they get paid now. We could pay their mortgage for them. Like, I've given $10,000 on my initial because I knew it was a banger. I've given $5,000, and then you could pay them monthly. There's so many things that you can do that way out offer any other wholesaler, because then if you're putting it on the market, then your offer is higher too. So it's hard for me to pigeonhole who this goes towards because it's such a solution-oriented method that it just works for more people. And you may see, because I just work mostly with foreclosures, you may see it not work with some people. So I'd love your feedback on that too. But for me, that's kind of what I see.
Oh, no, I love that. Yeah, I don't know who it would not work for when it's solving the problem, right? There are problems that this won't solve. One of the things that it may solve the problem, but it takes more work, is if there's 4 or 5 different heirs to a probate property and you're trying to split up a payment. For our team, I said, let's not deal with that because every sister and brother is going to want a piece of that payment. I'm like, you know what, this maybe not. But that might have to be a solution, and you might have to get creative whenever you get into that spot. So there's other questions that I have that I think people are just going to have to follow you to find out more because we're running out of time. We've been here too long. It's just so much fun. But, you might be able to hit on some of these. How long can I do an installment method? If I'm a wholesaler and I'm talking to a seller, what's my limit?
Alex, I'm going to let you answer these because I've been talking a while.
No, you're good. So I think, and Devin, I think we'd agree, but 90 days is really kind of where you want to sit. Right? It gives you plenty of time if you want to do some type of renovations. Obviously, if you're listing a house that maybe needs a little bit more work, that may not be as appealing to, an end buyer, like a retail buyer. Like, for example, we just started getting one under contract today that's going to have a 60-day limit. So the day he signs our contract to the day that we're going to sign that A to B closing, we're going to make sure everything's ready to go. For the day we close that, we're going to have a lockbox on there, sign in the yard, ready to list, right? Because I got 60 days to find an end buyer. Yeah, I mean, we kind of, let's see.
Is there a legal limit?
No, so it depends. In Texas, there's a legal limit. Can't be more than 180 days. So anybody here listening in Texas, that's the legal limit in Texas. But for the most part, it's not. Like, I know Steve Trang loves doing 150. His are all 130 and 160 days.
Yeah. And it really goes... 150 days is a good amount of time, and it really boils down to the rapport you built, I think, and what are you working with? What problems are you solving? Guys, if you're listening to this is a solution to the seller's problem. You're not getting anywhere. You're not making any profit. You're not building a business unless you're solving a problem. And so this is one of those tools that is so flexible. And I throw that question out there because I didn't know Texas had a limit. We were talking about you could do this for 50 years if you've got sellers or buyers that 100%. Are interested in that sort of thing, right?
So this is actually, really quickly, one thing. Sorry. The cool thing about this is Texas doesn't allow contract for deed, which is why they have a limit on this, is because the regulation is actually in benefit of the buyer on something like this. And so that's why they don't allow them to be more than that. So it's very interesting.
Yes, that is interesting. How much... You hit on this. You said you've done 10,000 down, 5,000 down, 500 down. If I'm new, I'm thinking, I got to put some money down. Typically, kind of around that EMD money. But this again is I have to say this a lot to some very new people that literally think you can start a business with no money. Y'all, you actually can't start a business with zero money at all. But wholesaling and being a deal finder and using installment method, you literally can get with almost $0. You can do zero of your own money by partnering up, going to your local meetups, meeting people that might have 500 or 1,000 but don't have the deal, right? So don't let that stop you. That is a hurdle that some people will hear this and be like, oh, he said 10,000, I don't have that. That's not how this works. You can do it with none of your own money or very little. So think through that. And then, yes, so I think the other questions, they really are going to have to follow you guys, because this is real estate is so big. There's so many options. Just the installment method, there's so many things that you can do, build, tweak to match the problem that the seller's having, right? So that's where is this? Where are you, Devin, where people can find you and really learn more about these variables, these details, how to sell it, how to be efficient in it?
Yeah, so I think wholesale2024.com, or you can go to installmentmethod.com. There's a free course on there that's going to just walk through like some of the trainings on this, just basics of how they can get and understand that. If they want to follow me a little bit more, like understand that, of course, there's Instagram. I also have a Facebook group, realliferei.com, or like real life REI. In that group, I'll talk about this. So then like it'll push, like we'll talk about this and talk about some of that stuff. And I just try to give value. So that's probably like the best place. Installmentmethod.com or realliferei.com. Those are just like instant value things that I think would be good for the listeners.
Yeah. What about you, Alex? If somebody wanted to reach out to you, do you have a landing page or website, email?
Yeah, the easiest would be, obviously anybody can hit me up through Facebook or installmentmethod.com/wholesale 2024 will literally set up like a call with Devin or even see you train with myself. So that's really probably the easiest way to really get the additional details.
Yeah, awesome. And guys, this is DealFinders, DealFindersClub.com. You can go there where we have all the recordings, we have the videos of this. You can have all of our resources as well. And if this is something that's really piqued your interest, I implore you, I ask you, I say, listen, dive in, learn more about one of these strategies. Be a deal finder. When it comes to real estate, there are deals in your backyard today. There are sellers that you probably know today that need some help. And they don't know where to turn, and they don't know that you might have a solution unless you let them know. So get out there, tell people you're looking. If this piques your interest, go figure out more. Learn how to do this so you can be a problem solver for those in your community. Deal Finders Club, we do meet at least about once a week. If you're local, if you're anywhere in South Carolina, you want to drive down, maybe we'll get Devin and Alex down here real soon to come and talk and chat some more. So if you guys want to reach out, that's how you can find me. But until the next time, stay tuned, like and subscribe us here, and check out these boys, and we'll see you next one. Bye.
See ya.
Yeah.
All right. Let me put a little marker in there. All right, guys, that was awesome.
Appreciate you having us.
Thanks for listening to the REI Deal Finders Podcast. You can find out more and apply to be a part of the REI Deal Finder community at reidealfinders.club.